Be honest with me for a second. Do you know that specific feeling? That sudden wave of relief? When you get a text message that says, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but can we reschedule our plans for tonight?" Most people would be annoyed. But you feel like a weight has been lifted off your chest. You suddenly have your evening back. You can breathe for a long time. You might have felt guilty about this. You look around at social media, at people constantly out at parties, networking events, or big dinners, and you think, is something wrong with me? Why do I just want to go home and be by myself? Maybe people have called you antisocial. Maybe you've even worried that you're becoming depressed. But what if I told you that your desire to be alone isn't a flaw? In fact, it might be the strongest sign that your brain functions differently, and perhaps more deeply, than the average person. Let's talk about why you prefer solitude and why it's actually your superpower. First, we need to clear up a massive misunderstanding. There is a huge difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is a poverty of self. It's when you feel isolated and you're desperate for connection, but you can't find it. It feels empty. It hurts. Solitude? Solitude is the richness of self. It's when you are alone, but you feel full. You feel restored. If you are someone who actively seeks out time alone, you aren't running away from the world. You are likely running toward yourself. Psychology tells us that highly intelligent and highly sensitive people experience the world at a higher resolution. You notice the micro expressions on people's faces. You pick up on the tone of voice that doesn't match the words. You hear the background noise that everyone else ignores. Processing all of that data is exhausting. Think of your brain like a web browser with 50 tabs open. Being around people adds 50 more tabs. Being alone is the only way you can finally close them, clear your cache, and actually think. You aren't depressed. You're just buffering. There is another reason you crave that empty room at the end of the day. It's called social masking. Whether you realize it or not, when you are in public, you are performing. You're monitoring your posture. You're laughing at jokes that aren't that funny. You're nodding to show you're listening. You are constantly regulating your emotions to make others feel comfortable. For people with high empathy or high intelligence, this performance is automatic, but it drains your battery incredibly fast. I bet you've had this happen. You're at a social gathering, having a perfectly fine time, and then suddenly, snap. Your battery hits 1%. You become irritable. You stop talking. You just want to leave immediately. That's not a mood swing. That is social burnout. The reason you love being alone is that it is the only time you are allowed to drop the mask. You don't have to perform. You don't have to worry about how you're being perceived in a world that is obsessed with image and branding. Your solitude is the only place where you are 100% authentic. That's not something to fix. That's something to protect. Here's a pattern I see all the time. The people who change the world, the writers, the inventors, the strategists, they almost always prioritize time alone. Why? Because you cannot hear your own intuition. When you are constantly surrounded by the noise of other people's opinions, if you are the type of person who loves to learn, who falls down rabbit holes of information, or who has big goals for the future, you need silence. Deep work, the kind of work that actually moves your life forward, requires a state of flow. And flow is nearly impossible to achieve when you are being interrupted every 15 minutes, or worrying about a dinner plan. Maybe you feel like you haven't achieved enough yet. Maybe you feel behind in life. Ironically, the solution isn't to go out and network more. It might be to embrace your solitude even more intentionally. When you stop apologizing for staying in, you gain the time to work on the things that actually matter to you. You trade a night of meaningless small talk for a night of building your future. That's a trade-off worth making. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, because I know the voice in your head is still asking, but what if it is depression? It is important to know the difference. Depression usually involves a loss of interest in everything. You don't want to see people, but you also don't want to do your hobbies. You feel numb or stuck in a loop of negative thoughts that you can't escape. If that sounds like you, please talk to a professional. That is real, and you deserve help with it. But if your time alone feels productive, if you use that time to read, to watch movies you love, to clean your space, to dream, or even just to rest deeply, that is not depression. That is self-regulation. You are self-sufficient. Most people are terrified of being alone with their thoughts because they don't like what they find. If you can sit in a quiet room and be content with your own company, you possess a level of mental strength most people spend their whole lives trying to build. Don't let society pathologize your peace. So, here is what I want you to do. Stop feeling guilty for saying no. The next time you decline an invitation because you need to recharge, don't make up a lie. You don't need to say your car broke down or that you're sick. Just respect your own needs enough to acknowledge them. Your solitude is the soil where your best ideas grow. It's where you heal. It's where you remember who you are. If you've been feeling weird or broken or too quiet, let this be your permission slip to stop. You are simply a person who understands the value of their own energy. If this video made you feel a little less crazy, do me a favor. Hit the like button. It helps this message reach other loners who need to hear it. And let me know in the comments, what is your favorite thing to do when you finally have the house to yourself? I read every comment, and I'd love to know I'm not the only one. Take care of your energy. I'll see you in the next one.